under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The prayer this morning will be offered by the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On today's St. Patrick's Day, as we celebrate the Irish culture throughout the world, let us take a lesson from a culture most known for its love of traditions, customs, and a distinctive national identity that values one's efforts and hard work as a measure of one's worth. So, for the luck of the Irish, let us pray. May the strength of God pilot us. May the wisdom of God instruct us. May the hand of God protect us. May the word of God direct us. May thy salvation, O Lord, be always ours this day and forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 128 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 8th, 2022.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered, petitions, memorials, and other papers. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Before we get started, we have a long day ahead of us with 2 sessions, and I wanted to take the time to remind you of a few things. If you're in your seat and miss a vote, you must stand up before the next bill is read to get your vote recorded. What happens on the floor of this House isn't about you. It isn't about me. It's about the work of the people who elected us to represent them. Let's show each other the respect that is deserved when debating the issues at hand. I expect all of you are talented enough to make your points without questioning the motives of other legislators or invoking party politics. Lastly, I want to commend the committees for bringing different voices on the floor. We have had newly appointed delegates, minority party members, and freshman members defending legislation and offering amendments. The public is better served when they don't just hear from the same members day after day. Now let's have a productive session today. Message from the Chief Executive, Supplemental Budget Number 2. The clerk will read the supplemental budget and the committee assignment.
Dear Madam Speaker, pursuant to the authority conferred on me by Article 3, Section 52, Subsection 5 of the Constitution of Maryland, and in accordance with the consent of the House of Delegates duly granted, I hereby submit Supplemental Budget Number 2 to Senate Bill 290, House Bill 300, in the form of an amendment to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Supplemental Budget Number 2 affects the previous estimated funds available for the budget operations as shown in the following summary statement. Sincerely, Lawrence J. Hogan, Jr., referred to appropriations.
Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the bills and committee assignments.
Senate Bill 387, the President, Judiciary.
Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 132 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading House bills number 49. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 318, Environment On-Site Wastewater Services Regulation.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? The gentleman from Talbot.
I stood up on the wrong bill. Good morning. Thank you.
Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker,
The gentleman from Garrett.
can you give me just a minute to pull something up? Got it. Would the floor leader please rise for a question?
Vice Chair of the committee.
I have a question on this bill. You're creating a new professional license under Maryland Department of Environment, is that correct?
Yes.
Could you explain who would be required to get these licenses under this new provision?
It would be any septic professional, including designers, installers, operation and maintenance, pumpers, property transfer inspectors.
I'm looking at the language of the bill and the provisions of the bill, and it lists a bunch of people, and then one of those is the property transfer inspector. Who is qualified? Who would be asking for a license under the provisions of this to become a property transfer inspector?
Well, actually, Delegate, with respect to property transfer inspectors, last year we passed legislation authorizing, requiring MDE to license property transfer inspectors. Inspectors of septic systems when there is a transfer of a property that has a septic system. And this bill folds regulation and oversight of property transfer inspectors into this septics board to be operated under MDEE.
The current practice, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that currently in the rural areas of the state and most of the counties, we have what used to be called sanitarians, and now they're environmental specialists or something, and they're licensed specifically they work under the health departments, and most of them are certified sanitarians or environmental people that go out and do these inspections whenever there's a complaint or whenever there's a transfer and the bank requires that they come out. So how is this licensed inspector different from the person from the health department that has qualified, done this, and has been doing it for a while and works under environmental health section of the health department? How does this differ from that?
Well, I guess to begin with, government employees are not subject to these licensing requirements. So the sanitarians, the folks that you refer to, are not subject to licensing under this. But again, with respect to property transfer inspectors, that is a particular group of individuals. And last year we passed separate legislation to require their licensing by MDE.
So could you give me an example of, say, what would this licensed transfer inspector do with respect of a transfer of a property? What authority do they have, or are they working for the realtor, are they working for the bank, or obviously they aren't under the authority of the health department, so what do they do basically, and how's this impact the transfer of property?
They would be individuals who would sign off on the quality of the septic system that is on site, and I'm not sure if it's a closing or in a separate documentation, but they would sign a document attesting to the soundness of the septic system.
Thank you. Madam Chair, could we hold this bill for special order so I can take a look at this?
This is the third reader.
Oh, third reader. I'm sorry. So excuse me. You answered my questions, so I'm fine. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Speaker. Madam
Gentleman
Speaker.
from Queen Anne,
Thank you. Would the floor to rise for clarification?
Vice Chair of the committee.
I'm behind you over here. It's a little easier.
Okay.
Okay. Yesterday you had mentioned that I asked you a question about my local counties and what they do. Is this bill going to be more comprehensive than what we're currently doing in most counties?
In many counties, yes. I can't say whether it's most counties, because there are some counties that already do have licensing regimes in place for many of the septic professionals who are covered. So it's really a patchwork of regulations across counties that apply to septic professionals. So I can't say, there really is no average county to compare it to, but there are some that have very little of any regulation. There are others that have more comprehensive regulations of septic professionals. But the goal here is to provide standardized regulation and licensing of these septic professionals across the state.
Okay, and my other question was about the license fees and whatever, and what we're currently doing. Would it be safe to say for my counties to go back to them saying, you can now get rid of what you currently have, and now you can adhere to this, and you can eliminate those fees and those processes?
It's really up to the county. I guess I wouldn't want to be in a position of offering advice to each particular county. If they want to have their own systems in place as well, that's fine.
Okay. I'm just worried about.
But it's possible that county would say, okay, since there's now this state oversight that MDE is providing, that maybe they don't need to have their own individual licensing or certification procedures.
Okay. My biggest concern about the bill is the double cost to the people who do the job. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
If the floor lady could please stand for a quick question. I was looking at the testimony. It says the Maryland Conference of Local Environmental Health Directors were opposed to this bill. These are the ones that oversee the septic systems in the wastewater currently. So right now, they're going to have their own set of standards, like you just said, and then another overarching set of standards. Am I to understand that correctly, and that's why they oppose?
Well, I can't speak to the reason for their motivation, but if they're government employees, they're not subject to this.
So why would the local health directors be opposed?
Again, I can't speak to their motive for their opposition.
Thank you very much.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor leader rise for a question. I think I might have the same problem my fellow co-delegate had, but this looks like it might be the bill that I'm concerned about. So you were talking with the gentleman from Garrett County, Western Maryland, about this attestation or certification of a system. Could you talk to me a little bit more about what that is and what that looks like under the bill?
The certification of a system that's installed?
Yes.
Well, typically with respect to most septic systems, local government will do the inspection and certification. If it is an unusual septic system, then that is deferred to MDE. And that under this legislation would not change.
Okay, so the concern I have would be if you're having some entity and now we're doing licensing. So I'm seeing licensing procedures and definitions for designer, master installer, and journey installer, which I'm not sure that even applies in this trade, but nevertheless, I'll just leave that alone. It appears to me that there is some designer or some individual business entity that is going through and is involved with the design, but in this case of a transfer, which I think is where the Western Maryland delegate was headed, is that there would be this transfer of property, and before that happens, there may be a due diligence period in a contract, and so within that would be some third party that's coming through and doing a certification as to whether that system works. So I guess I'm asking, does this bill create additional regulation and or licensing requirements for that scenario?
Well, actually, this bill, with respect to property transfer inspectors, does not create any new licensing or regulatory systems. We passed separate legislation last year to do that.
Okay, so that was the same answer you gave to the Western Maryland delegate. My concern would be when a inspector goes out, and now that we put licensing in place, and that implies that there's a higher degree of reliability to that process, what happens when that attestation is made that the system is working, the person moves into the house, and 6 weeks later the system goes kaput? What is the homeowner then lean to? Do they go back to this third party? Do we go back and say, well, if the state created the licensing, they're responsible? There's a lot to this bill, and I think there's a lot of decisions that are made on the ground in each county that takes into account each individual circumstance. When we start taking state law and regulation, licensing, we're trying to create a one-size-fits-all. So the question that the Western Maryland delegate, I think, was headed at was, are we taking away some autonomy from the locals by putting this bill in place?
I don't think we're taking autonomy away. In many situations where there's a complaint about a septic system, there is no place to go. The homeowner has no venue to file a complaint, to try to get it resolved. This bill will set up that system so that if someone, for example, if a septic system is installed and it turns out it was flawed, then they could file a complaint with this board and try to seek a remedy. With respect to the property transfer inspector, if someone certifies that a system is functioning properly, then a month later it turns out they were wrong, they missed something big, then that would be another situation where someone could submit a complaint. Whereas right now, they may very well don't have any place to go.
Right. So, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I have one other question for you, if you don't mind. When we create this licensing requirement and additional burdens, I'm going to call them burdens on the locals, is it going to take longer for a certification or an approval or a transfer inspection to occur with the bill, or is it going to be faster, frankly, to get these determinations made prior to the bill's passage?
There shouldn't be any difference.
So on the House floor, you're saying that this is not going to change the speed with which an inspection and approvals are done?
It shouldn't. It just means that the professionals who are doing this kind of work will be licensed. I mean, conceivably, that might quicken the process, but I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to say here on the House floor that it'll automatically speed up the process.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Speaker, on the bill, I'm opposed to a bill that seeks to take away local autonomy and authority away from the counties who have state connections to MDE, have obviously responsibilities to make sure systems work. They also advocate on behalf of the property owners, especially in these transfer situations. So when we add layers of regulation, I understand why we want a clean environment, and we get there, but are we not already doing that through MDE? And are we not adding burdens to the process? I'm going to lay out a personal situation scenario that I had that speaks to the concerns I have with the bill. About 3 years ago, we had a system that was failing one of our properties. I hired an environmentalist to come out, do an inspection on the property. It took him about 2 weeks. I understand the system was down. And so before we had to go through and get the permitting, there had to be identifying what's wrong with the system, do we need to replace it? Keep in mind, this was about a $12,000 replacement, for which I came out of pocket to pay for that. So we did it. We spent the money on the system. The environmentalist said it needed to be done. Literally 6 weeks later, I get a call from the person living in the property saying the system's failed. There's some bell ringing outside, and so people that understand septic systems knows what's going on. This system's getting overloaded. Well, come to find out, in this house was the toilet whose plunger wasn't working correctly, and it was consistently running water out of the house through the toilet into the septic system, and guess what? It was failing. Now, I spent $12,000 on this exercise. Am I happy I did it? Well, I guess so, because it's a better or best available technology system, so great for the environment. But how many people don't have the ability to pay for these sort of mistakes? Now, if the idea here is that we're creating licensing because we're going to get better quality inspections, that we're going to get faster service from the health departments, the local counties, to get emergency situations resolved, new construction projects get design and get approvals for those faster, that's great, but my guess is that's not what this bill does. It's more regulation, more burden, and it does, at the end of the day, take away the ability for property owners to work directly with local counties to resolve problems with these systems. I do worry about the bill and its passage because I think it takes away from what I've learned in my county is a fairly dynamic and effective process. So thank you, Madam Speaker. I oppose the bill.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 95 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 318, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 381, Municipalities Charter Amendments Notice.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 381, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 413, Health Insurance Individual Market Stabilization, Extension of Provider Fee.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would very much like to support this bill. I think that it has a good intention to try to lower healthcare costs for certain elements of society. We all understand that healthcare costs are an important part of problems that we face and problems for people's budget. But because ultimately, I and I think many, many others have concluded that essentially this is the imposition of a tax, a fairly significant tax in the aggregate in terms of the total value of money raised upon certain other elements of society, those of us who pay for sort of group insurance plans and other types of small employer plans. It is a tax on them, however you want to cut it. I will unfortunately oppose and vote against this bill. I hope it works. I hope it provides beneficial effects, but I think we're probably going about it the wrong way. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm standing up in support of this bill, which came to us from the governor through his health team, simply in order to provide the security of the solvency of the reinsurance fund for the next 5 years. And I'm going to try not to geek out on you too much, but I really want you to understand what the bill does and why it's important. As you contemplate your vote, I want you to understand how it works. In 2018, our individual insurance market was imploding. It was failing. After years of 20 and 30% increases in premiums, people were leaving insurance, getting out, just leaving their insurance completely, and leaving us with a sicker and sicker pool of people with much higher claims cost. As a consequence of fewer people being insured, the cost of uncompensated care, which we all pay, doesn't matter if we're on a commercial insurance, if we're in Medicaid, if we're on a self-insured program, every single one of us pays for the uninsured, uncompensated care that people receive. And this was skyrocketing. So in order to stabilize the market, this body established the provider fee. It is an assessment on health insurance carriers to create a fund that is really an insurance company or an insurance fund for insurance companies. This is what the carriers tap into when they have members who are requiring large claims and are very sick. And every commercial carrier in the market taps into this fund. But you also need to know that the funds collected by the provider fee do not cover the need at all. We really rely very heavily on federal pass-through funds that are generated by our state commitment to putting money in the fund. So let's look at the numbers. Over 3 years, the provider fee has garnered $570 million. 3 years, the first year was 2.75%, 1% in the last two, $570 million. The federal pass-through funds that we've received, $1.3 billion as the result of that $570 million. $1.3 billion. What's been the cost to the insurance carriers over those 3 years? 1.2 billion. 1.3 billion from the feds, cost 1.2 billion. So right now, we have not tapped into the funds that the carriers have provided us through this fee. But, and this is a really significant but, the federal funds are contingent on a number of factors that are not in our control and are always unpredictable. And actually, as we get more people insured, we actually get, and the premiums stay stable, we actually get less federal funds. So we need some reserve to cover those to cover people in the future. It is ultimately the goal that we don't need the reinsurance fund, but that won't happen until we have 100% of our people covered with insurance. So yes, it is a fee / tax that is passed on to the consumer, but that 1% of premium has resulted in an average 32% decrease in premiums. Net gain, 31% is what my math says. The individual market is stabilized and premiums have gone down. The enrollment has increased in insurance by 25%. So this bill gives us security for next 5 years to make sure that we have the funds to meet the needs of some of the neediest and vulnerable people that we have in the state. It does not preclude us from looking at other options and alternatives. We can change the program. We will be looking very closely at whether this is the right program. But it gives us the leeway and the time to do that, and I ask for your favorable vote. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the call on this administration bill. There being 97 votes in the affirmative, HB 413 having received the constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 511, University of Maryland Institute for Public Leadership Establishment.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yesterday we had an interesting debate on this bill, and it was brought up that it was assumed that college professors were more leaning left and progressive than Republicans. So I looked up a study this morning that came out of a Brooklyn professor and said American college professors are 95 times more likely to donate to Democrats than Republicans. So I will not be voting for this bill because I'm pretty sure what we're going to be teaching these young students is not going to be from a conservative Republican philosophical view. And it's kind of like a training camp for these next batch of progressive Democrats that'll be coming up here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Speaker. Gentleman from
Ladies and gentlemen,
Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a public leadership institute at one of the premium higher education universities, not just in the state, in the nation. I'm old enough to remember a time when Americans were proud of our institutions. We celebrated our great American institutions. I don't know what's happened in the last 5 years, but it's a public leadership institute that is going to teach leaders, mold leaders, not from any party, not from any district, but across this great state. Urge a green vote.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary's.
I'm just standing up to defend my colleague here. I mean, what he said was completely appropriate. When we sit there and look at a number of our colleagues just in the General Assembly that teach at University of Maryland, and especially graduated from this leadership program, it does seem to be on one side of the aisle. You look at the number of professors. It's interesting, we rattled off about 3 of them yesterday, but how many professors at University of Maryland? 3, 4, 500? Look, I think this public debate, where you don't like hearing it, I mean, it's something that needs to be talked about. We need to be focusing on diversity of thought, and I don't think anybody, at least on my side of the aisle, doesn't agree with teaching people a balanced point of view. And the problem that we're having in our higher ed facilities, and really around the country, you can look at some of the mass media that is coming out of these leadership institutes, so there's only one side of the aisle is being taught. And we think that's problematic. I do. And I'm going to be voting red on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there
Madam
any
Speaker.
gentlelady from
Thank you,
Baltimore
Madam
City?
Speaker. I take great exception to these comments. I am an adjunct professor at the University of Baltimore. For 2 sessions now, I have made it intentional to invite Republicans to my class because it is important to have perspective. It's important. It's the legislative process. The process. Not about Dems and ours, the process for which we are all involved. I take great exception to these comments. They're not true. They're false. I will be voting green on this bill.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you. The University of Maryland, I recently graduated from one of the R1 university. In our state, there are only 3 R1 university. The University of Maryland is one. And the University of Maryland School of Public Policy, if you look the stress data, has a long history of championing and delivering public leadership development, both for students in their degree program, for professional through executive development program, and they graduate, this is fact, this is not a fiction, they graduate approximately half of their class each year into public service role, into local, state, and federal government. And many alumni for their academic and executive program hold elected position like us, and a high-level appointment in public agencies. This is important because the importance of public sector as a platform from which to serve is the heart of who we are and what is our institution. It is not about Republican, it is not about Democrat. If our hospitals are better, good. If schools, universities are better, it's good for Republican, Democrat, or no party. This is one of the great institutions. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That really piqued my interest a little bit. So half of the people graduating from public policy right now are going into service to our state. A lot of folks in our state are really displeased with the services we've been offering for the last 2 years. So if half of those folks that are graduating are coming to the state of Maryland and doing the stuff that they've been doing, then this is absolutely a political bill. It just is. We can try to stand on high moral ground and say that it's not, but this is clearly politically motivated. And it's disappointing, and I'm glad that some of our colleagues who are professors, I've actually been to one of our colleagues' classes and spoke. It was terrifying when I asked the question, though, have any of you ever met a Republican? And no one had raised their hand. They had never met a Republican. They liked me. No, that's good. I'm converting people every day. So yeah, this is a political bill. And public policy in Maryland is highly political. And the people of Maryland are starting to get really, really irritated with it. So I'll be a red vote, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a little bit of a different perspective. I'm a proud graduate of 3 Maryland public institutions, University of Maryland Law School, Towson University, and UMBC. I have my master's in public policy from UMBC. Similar program, not exactly the same as perhaps the public policy department and program at University of Maryland College Park. My friends and colleagues and fellow classmates who studied under the different professors at UMBC learned management, negotiation, statistics, data organizational management, public policy budgeting. Heifetz and Lipsky were two professors, not at University of Maryland, but their books were read by us, talking about learning how to see things from different perspectives and understanding how to get on the balcony, off the balcony, back on the dance floor, on the basketball court, or here in the chamber. Environmental stewardship, something that I learned both in University of Maryland School of Law and at UMBC. Business administration. I decided to go into politics, but my colleagues went to DLS, Administrative Office of the Courts, Department of DNR, Office of Science and Technology, the White House, under both administrations. These are people who have become civil servants. They become the people who, oftentimes, the head of the bureaucracy determining how to implement the policies that we get to vote on. But they are not political. This is not political. This is an institution that has to have complete disassociation with politics. So I'm going to vote for this because I think that we want to keep pristine our universities and let them decide how to best, using the best science and the best technology and the best professors, how to teach our young people how to be the leaders of tomorrow and keep us moving. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to vote green on this.
Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
I can hear you up here.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 511, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Perhaps some of you weren't listening when I spoke prior to session. I'm going to read one of the bullets that I want to reinforce. Apparently, some of you, not all of you, didn't get it. Let's show each other the respect that is deserved when debating the issues at hand. I expect all, are you listening? All of you are talented enough to make your points without questioning the motives or other legislators or invoking party politics. I'm not going to say it again. Do you get it? All right. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 664, Child Care Programs, Maryland Infants and Toddlers Program, Information and Assistance.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 664, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 753, Primary and Secondary Schools Bus Driver Wages Study.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 753, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Recognizing gentlelady from
Madam Speaker.
Anne Arundel.
Thank you. My button literally did not work just now on that last bill, House Bill 753. I'd like to be recorded in the green, please.
Okay. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 862, Election Law Ballot Canvassing, Multiple Ballots Cast by an Individual.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 862, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1486, motor fuel taxes, tax-free period.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And first of all, let me say as a threshold matter that I am certainly appreciative of the way leadership has come together in fashioning and fast-tracking this legislation that's before us today. I'm certainly strongly supportive of a gas tax holiday that we have before us, particularly at a time when, you know, gas prices, which have been rising steadily, but certainly has been compounded after Putin started committing war crimes. People really need help at the pump, plain and simple. So I'll enthusiastically vote for this bill. However, you know, call me a Debbie Downer. However, you can always expect a however from me, but there's so much more, I think, in the realm of tax relief that we really need to do for folks, particularly at a time when we see a $7.5 billion surplus. So, but with regard to the gas tax, Madam Speaker, which is inherently regressive, everybody knows that. Of course, I would have liked to have seen a longer holiday, perhaps a 90-day abatement would be good under the circumstances, because we know that under a 30-day hiatus on collecting the gas tax, the average household might save 30 or 40 bucks, and with today's prices, that'll probably get you a couple loaves of bread and a pound of bologna. But it's something. It's something. And we also know, though, that after the 30-day period, people are going to still wind up paying exorbitant prices at the pump. I would have liked to have seen, longer term relief by, tying it perhaps to the price of gas, as long as it's gas on average is $3.75 or $3.50 or whatever number we could come up with. There would be a holiday on the collection of the gas tax. But we really have to think holistically about broad-based tax relief at a time when we have this historic surplus. According to Goucher poll, just came out the other day, 1 out of 3 Marylanders report being worse off financially than a year ago. And 56% have said that they've experienced financial hardship as a result of recent price increases. So my message is, Madam Speaker, we've got to get folks broad-based tax relief across the board, but I enthusiastically support this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not,
Absolutely.
Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I join the minority whip in an enthusiastic support of this bill. This is the first time that I can ever remember the motor fuel tax being cut in the state of Maryland. But I do have some questions about the long-term policy. So as soon as this bill goes into effect, as soon as we vote it out, and I'm extremely happy for that, it goes to the governor's desk and it should go into effect immediately. And our constituents are going to experience a 36 or 37 cents per gallon tax cut. And that should last, I believe in the legislation, for the next 30 days. So we're going to cut a tax, and then 30 days later, we're going to increase a tax, a whopping 37 cents. And then a couple months later, an automatic tax increase on the same product kicks in. And that doesn't seem right. You know, we voted down an amendment a couple weeks ago on fuel taxes because inflation's at a, you know, it was troublesome that we did that. Inflation's at a 40-year high. And the long-term effects of this, I don't know. I think we could do better for our constituents, Madam Speaker. And I'm happily to support it, but beware. April 15th is going to be a bad, bad day. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Explain my vote.
Gentleman to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I 100% support this bill and had casted a green vote. However, I want to bring some historical perspective. Please, everyone in this body needs to understand that the Divorcement Act of 1979 that this body enacted took the small business service station owners and removed them from big oil refineries. So the problem of 30 days is that I'm not exactly sure that the consumer is going to see in their pocketbook the way the market is fluctuating. So it's important to support our small businesses and don't put them on the blame of small businesses who are retail gas station owners in the state of Maryland. This is beyond their control. They do want to support their customers to make sure that they and their pockets can continue to put food on the table. But it's important that we support our small businesses, mindful of the 1979 Divorcement Act. Thank you.
Clerk will take the call. There being 131 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1486, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 10. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 232, Montgomery County Alcoholic Beverages, Class B Beer, Wine, and Liquor, Clubhouse Lodge License, Manufacturer's Licenses.
The question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 233, Montgomery County Alcoholic Beverages, Class C Microbrewery License. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 233 authorizes the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission to issue a Class 7 microbrewery on and off sale license to the holder of a Class D beer, wine, and liquor license in Montgomery County. In addition, the bill increases the number of certain alcoholic beverage licenses that the Board of License Commissioners from Montgomery County may issue for use in Kensington. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters alcoholic beverages license limits in Kensington. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill, additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Seeing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 241, Montgomery County Damascus Alcoholic Beverages, Class B Beer, Wine, and Liquor License. Referendum. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 242, Montgomery County Alcoholic Beverages, Consumption-Only Marketplace Licenses. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 11. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 357, Prince George's County Alcoholic Beverages, Sunday Off-Sale Permits. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 357 repeals the limitation on the number of Sunday off-sale permits that the Prince George's County Board of License Commissioners may issue. Amendment number 1 changes the effective date to June 1st, 2022. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 359, Prince George's County Alcoholic Beverages, transfer of Class A beer, wine, and liquor license. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 840, Howard County Alcoholic Beverages, consumption only shopping mall plaza license and special event permit. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves to much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 840 establishes a consumption-only shopping mall plaza license in Howard County that authorizes the holder to allow the consumption of beer, wine, and liquor in a designated outdoor plaza located on the premises of a shopping mall. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires the Board of License Commissioners and the Hearing Board to give particular consideration to the avoidance of the overconcentration of licenses in neighborhoods. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1308, Howard County Alcoholic Beverages licenses, notifications. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves to much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 1308 repeals the requirement that Howard County Board of License Commissioners must publish notice of an alcoholic beverages license application 2 times in 2 successive weeks in 2 newspapers of general circulation in the jurisdiction before the board may approve an application for a license. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires an applicant for an alcoholic beverages license to take a photo of a certain hearing notice and send the notice to the board, requires the board to post a certain hearing notice on the board's website at least 15 days before the hearing on a license application, and finally requires the board to provide notice of a certain hearing to the Howard County Office of Public Information at least 15 days before a certain hearing. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 12. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 555, Queen Anne's County Alcoholic Beverages License Applications. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 671, Somerset County Alcoholic Beverages, abolishment of Liquor Control Board and Dispensary System. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves to much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 671 repeals the Somerset County Liquor Control Board and establishes the Class A beer, wine, and liquor license in the county and authorizes the Somerset County Board of License Commissioners to issue the license. The amendment is technical. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1180, Wacomico County Alcoholic Beverages Dinner Theater License. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 1180 establishes the Class B-DT dinner, theater, beer, wine, and liquor license in Wacomico County. The amendment clarifies the requirements related to food and hours of operation. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1181, Wacomico County Alcoholic Beverages Class B-BF Banquet Facility License. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 1181 establishes the Class B-BF Banquet Facility Beer, Wine, and Liquor License in Wacomico County. The amendment clarifies the requirements related to food consumption. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 13. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 465, Harford County Alcoholic Beverages Resort Complex License. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 465 establishes a resort complex license in Harford County. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 authorizes the Harford County Board of License Commissioners to determine the minimum number of employees required to complete an alcohol awareness training program, and also alters the annual license fee from $6,000 to $4,000. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 493, Harford County Alcoholic Beverages Service Under Stadium License. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 493 is an emergency bill that repeals the requirement that an individual may serve beer, wine, and liquor under a Harford County Stadium beer, wine, and liquor license only in a plastic, styrofoam, or paper container, and authorizes an individual to serve beer, wine, and liquor by the drink and by the bottle from one or more outlets for on-premises consumption. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 authorizes a stadium in Harford County to serve an alcoholic beverage in a glass, as opposed to just plastic and paper in a designated area of the stadium during a special event. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 520, Harford County Alcoholic Beverages Stadium License Annual Fee. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 520 decreases the license fee from $10,000 to $4,000 for a stadium beer, wine, and liquor license in Harford County. Amendment number 1 is technical and makes changes to the sponsor line. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 14. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 280, Washington County Alcoholic Beverages Class CT License. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 856, Washington County Alcoholic Beverages, University and College Hospitality Beer, Wine, and Liquor License. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1106, Washington County Alcoholic Beverages License, Wine. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1117, Washington County Alcoholic Beverages Class B, C, and D licenses, sidewalk cafe, patio, permit, and purchases. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 1117 replaces the sidewalk cafe permit currently available in Washington County with a sidewalk cafe patio permit and alters numerous provisions relating to the permit. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions that would have allowed certain license holders to purchase alcoholic beverages from a retailer in addition to a wholesaler. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1118, Garrett County Alcoholic Beverages Act of 2022. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1234, Frederick County Alcoholic Beverages Act of 2022. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 1234 makes several changes to alcoholic beverages license provisions in Frederick County. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions related to state residency requirements for certain alcoholic beverages licenses in Frederick County. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 16. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 460, Baltimore County Alcoholic Beverages Licenses, Transfers. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. It's right here. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 460 authorizes the Baltimore County Board of License Commissioners to approve the transfer of up to 5 Class B or Class D licenses from an eligible transfer district as specified. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds a definition for eligible transfer district, strikes references to election district 15, and replaces it with an eligible transfer district, and finally establishes a method for the Baltimore County Board of License Commissioners to transfer certain licenses. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 464, Baltimore City, 41st Legislative District, Alcoholic Beverages Marketplace License. Favorable.
Is on third reading and final passage. Excuse me. Got my finger there. Question for the House, the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1210, Baltimore City Alcoholic Beverages Licenses Transfer. Favor of amendments. Amendment number 1.
Floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 1210 authorizes the transfer of one Class A beer and light wine license issued for a property in Baltimore City bounded by West Eager Street, Morton Street, Brexton Street, and Cathedral Street to a property bounded by East Chase Street, North Lovegrove Street, East Eager Street, and North Charles Street. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 authorizes the Board Baltimore City License Commissioners to waive the distance requirement related to places of worship or schools, and finally provides clarifying language. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1221, Baltimore City Alcoholic Beverages 40th Alcoholic Beverages District. Favor of amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 1221 is an emergency bill that authorizes the Baltimore City Board of License Commissioners to issue a public market license in the 40th Alcoholic Beverages District, the new Lexington Market. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 makes the bill an emergency bill. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Question now is adoption of the ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 11. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 107, Cooperative Housing Corporations, Condominiums, and Homeowners Association Reserve Study statewide. Favor of amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing floor leader.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, this bill requires a study of reserves needed for future major repairs and replace the common elements for cooperative housing or condominium, common areas of certain homeowners associations. Amendment number 1 adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 corrects a drafting error. Amendment number 3 alters the groups of people who are able to perform reserve studies under the bill. Amendment number 4 authorizes a governing body of a common ownership community to fund reserves required by the initial reserve study over 3 immediate successful budget cycles, following the fiscal year where the reserves study was conducted. Amendment number 5 applies to provisions of the bill with respect to the condominium to residential communities only. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Recognizing the gentleman from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader hold this bill for possible amendment until the next session?
The next session today, yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
House Bill 107 has been special ordered to the later on today. In favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 254, State Highway Administration, Pedestrian and Bicyclist Fatalities, Infrastructure Review, Vision Zero Implementation Act of 2022. Favor of amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 strikes illustrative corrective action and countermeasures. Amendment number 2 alters the certain requirement of SHA in conducting an infrastructure review. And amendment number 3 alters the timeline for completion of the review. Amendment number 4 adds sponsors. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for the floor leader. Is this retroactive?
Floor leader.
No.
Would the committee, we had a particularly bad fatality on a state road in District 6. I'm not going to press the issue, but would you be amenable to an amendment which made it retroactive to a certain date?
I don't think that would be.
Okay. I appreciate the consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Are you asking to have the bill
No,
special? What are you asking?
No, that's okay. I appreciate it, Madam Speaker.
All right, so we can proceed with the,
Yeah, I think we're all good, Madam Speaker.
okay, all right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I forgot where I left off on. All right. Any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 331, Local Government Regulation of Amateur Radio Station Antenna Structures, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 535, Washington Suburban Transit Commission, Montgomery County Commissioners, repeal of term limit, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you. The amendment adds members appointed by the Prince George's County Executive. That's it. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 592, Deer Management Permit, hunting on state land leased by permit holder, authorization, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Yeah. Recognizing floor leader.
Madam Speaker, move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments clarify that DNR has the authority to allow hunting under a deer management permit with a certain weapon. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 644, Cecil County Fishing Restrictions, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Floor leader.
Madam Speaker, thank you, Madam Speaker. The committee amendments move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The committee amendments limit the prohibition to setting commercial pound nets in the Susquehanna River in Cecil County and strike the prohibition against establishing a commercial haul seine fishery in the Susquehanna River. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 682, Baltimore County Hunting, Non-Game Birds and Mammals, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 884, State Conservation Land Old Growth Forest Protection, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds speakers and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 limits application of the act to state parks and wildlife management areas. Amendment number 3 requires applicable old-growth forest to be managed in a manner that prohibits logging. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations. Report number 7. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 479, General Provisions, Commemorative Days, Tuskegee Airmen Commemoration Day, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 484, General Provisions, Commemorative Days, Dashing Day, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 516, St. Mary's County Human Relations Commission, Equal Treatment, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 612, Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Responsibilities and Reporting, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 663, State Government Notarial Acts, Fees and Use of Communication Technology, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 915, Maryland Healthcare Commission Patient Safety Center, Designation and Fund, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1107, Maryland Sign Language Interpreters Act, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary. Clerk will read the bill.
Report number 15, House Bill 808, Estate and Trust, Guardianship of Minors, Appointment by Court, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary. Report number 16. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 34, Criminal Law, Indecent Exposure Within the Sight of a Minor, favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds sponsors and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 adds requirements that the act be done with prurient intent and that the minor victim be more than 4 years younger than the offendant. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 67, Correctional Services, Step-Down Programs, Cause of Action, favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognize the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill and prohibits to the extent possible the Commissioner of Corrections from prohibiting an inmate placed in restrictive housing from having access to a reentry specialist or case manager within 180 days before the direct release of the inmate from a correctional facility to the community. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, would you rise for a question, please?
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm reading the testimony on this bill, and I don't know if the amendments addressed it or not, but it says this includes comprehensive best practices concerning restrictive housing that were developed as a result of 5 years of comprehensive national research and community input. This bill would conflict with the department's MOU and the ACA process as these performance standards evolved over time. So did your amendments address these concerns?
I believe so. The operative term on amendment number 2 is strikes the bill.
Okay. Strikes the bill and replaces it?
I would start there, yep.
Oh, wow, okay, that's good to know. Didn't think we were allowed to do that, okay.
It includes language that would do this to the maximum extent practicable, and so I think it's
So the bill really doesn't do anything at all?
It's conforming.
To the extent practicable, isn't that what they're doing right now?
It's attempting to codify best practices.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing General Lady from Carroll.
Question for the floor leader. Since you struck the bill, I'm trying to catch up with what's in the bill. The original bill, it basically gave a right of civil action for for denial of the right of access to a step-down program. Is any of that still in the bill, that the criminal would have a...
No.
So there's no fiscal impact that they can now sue the government for not doing this program?
No.
All that's out?
Correct.
That's a good move in the right direction. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 211, Crimes, Firearms, Straw Purchase Participant Penalty. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes language altering the penalty for participating in a straw purchase of regulated firearms and adds the crime of knowingly being a participant in a straw purchase of a regulated firearm to the list of crimes subject to a warrantless arrest. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 437, Criminal Law, Public Safety, Communications with Public Safety Answering Points. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions relating to stalking and harassment and increases the maximum incarceration penalty for making a false statement to a law enforcement or public safety answering point from 6 months to 3 years. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 650, Execution on a Judgment, Child Support Arrearage, Workers' Compensation. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment strikes the workers' compensation benefits listed in the bill and substitutes workers' compensation indemnity benefits, including any weekly benefits or settlement proceeds payable to the debtor. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 833, Criminal Law, Victims of Child Sex Trafficking, Safe Harbor and Service Response. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much we consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters procedures that a law enforcement officer in juvenile court must follow when there's reason to believe that a child who has been detained is a victim of sex trafficking. It adds references to victims of human trafficking throughout, adds violations under the juvenile causes subtitle, expands the qualifying offenses under the bill, and it strikes some provisions relating to confidentiality of child abuse records and prostitution statutes. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House of 1062, Criminal Law, Animal Cruelty, Petition for Costs for Care of Seized Animal. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much we consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment is clarifying. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Why is it saying this twice? Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House of 1248, Child Abuse and Neglect Investigations, Timelines. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, move so much we consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment is technical. Madam Speaker, please move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading.
Madam Speaker.
Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 17. Clerk will read the bill.
House of 187, Estates and Trust, Administration of Estates, Fees. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please consider the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the fee schedule and strikes the provisions related to those fees for the issuance of show cause orders. Please move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just had a question about what the bill's intent was with respect to fees that personal representatives or counsel for the personal representative get. Is it eliminating the ability to get fees for what we would call small estates or estates that have a gross aggregate value of below $50,000?
That is correct. It's eliminating the probate fees that one would have to pay to the Register of Wills for estates 50,000 or less.
And I can understand that. I mean, is there any concern that that may limit or inhibit people, maybe people of socioeconomic backgrounds that the estates aren't very big, but it's important to them? It's a house that doesn't have much equity in it, for example, or it's some small bank accounts that have been left out there. It will inhibit them from getting legal assistance and able to navigate the process. Sometimes the estate process is unnecessarily complex, even for these small things, the forms and the rules and what you have to get from the Register of Wills in order to get a bank account of your aunt released to you and things. And that's my only concern. By eliminating the fees, does it still allow for counsel to represent these individuals?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You're absolutely correct that sometimes navigating the system can be a little cumbersome for the layperson, but it would still allow them to seek legal representation.
So they won't be prohibited, or the attorney providing them services won't be in violation of any type of ethical rule or statutory rule to say, hey, this person wanted to hire me, they're having a concern about the administration of their small estate, I agreed to do it, I have a signed retainer agreement, it's all above board, nobody's violating any of the new rules by doing that?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate? Is there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 18.
House Bill 559, probation before judgment, probation agreements, probation not deportation. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 provides that the entry of probation agreement under the bill must be considered as probation before judgment for all other purposes under state law. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report has been adopted.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Cecil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader yield for a question?
Yes.
Just if you could give a brief description of what the bill does.
Sure. What this bill does is that it authorizes a court to place a defendant on probation before judgment if the court finds facts justifying a finding of guilt.
Right, so that's already current practice, right?
It's similar. It's a variation.
So what would be the difference between any other, let's say, citizen, non-citizen that was asking for probation?
There would be no difference. Everyone under this bill can attain a probation before judgment with facts finding a justification of guilt.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of questioning why the bill is necessary. I didn't have any more questions. So would you mind if I did a special order until the next session on this bill?
That's okay.
All right, thank you. Madam Speaker, I'd like to request special order.
The question before the body is to special order HB 559 to the next session. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The bill has been special ordered.
Thank you.
Report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 19. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 176, court service of process fees collected by sheriff. Favor of amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the fee increase for the service of certain landlord and tenant actions and adds a clarifying subsection relating to the service of papers for certain landlord and tenant actions. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Recognize the gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the floor leader rise, please?
Floor leader.
Sure.
So it looks like you're raising the fee from $40 to $60.
Yeah, the fee that the sheriff can charge, and they don't have to, but they can, up to $60.
And who are they charging?
They would charge whoever is asking for the process to be done.
So probably, anybody. It's not just a landlord, tenant.
No, those are excluded. Landlord and tenant are all excluded. That was a request from, we're dealing with lots of issues with tenants having some trying times, so we did not want to increase the fee on them.
Okay, would you mind if I special ordered this just to take a closer look at it?
Sure, Mr. Chair, that's okay.
Okay,
Yes.
till tomorrow. Thank you.
No. Second session.
Second session, sounds perfect. Thank you.
Question for the House is to special order HB 176 to the second session today. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 185, criminal law, visual surveillance with prurient intent, minor victim. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds a residence and another place of private use or accommodation as locations where visual surveillance with prurient intent is prohibited. Amendment number 3 limits the heightened penalty provision to violations committed by use of a camera and reduces the violation to a misdemeanor punishable by maximum penalties of 5 years or $2,500. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 571, access to counsel in eviction special fund alteration. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes certain provisions of the preamble and is clarifying. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 785, Baltimore City District Court Jobs Court Pilot Program. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires the submission of an interim report, mandates a minimum $500,000 budget appropriation for each of the 5 years of the pilot program, and delays the start of the program until July 1st, 2023. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The favorable report is adopted. Gentleman from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a question for the floor leader, if he could rise, please.
Chairman of the committee.
Sure. Thank you. I think you were mentioning funding in the amendments, and it was a little fast. How is this funded?
This is a $500,000 budget appropriation for each of the next 5 years.
And where does that money come from?
General fund.
From the state?
Yes, from the state.
Okay. It appeared as a local bill, and that's why I wanted to verify. So
Understand.
it is state funded. Thank you. Appreciate it. Answers my questions.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Judiciary, report number 20. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 868, Circuit Court for Howard County, judges sitting as orphans court. Favorable.
Oh, geez, favorable. So you having something. Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 9. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 512, Professional Standards and Teacher Education Board Composition Alteration. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires that the Professional Standards and Teacher Education Board and the State Board of Education adopt rules to attract and certify teachers from groups historically underrepresented in the teaching profession, bringing requirements for certification in alignment with the requirements for teacher preparation adopted in the blueprint. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 665, Public Schools Air Quality Testing, Posting Online. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires the Interagency Commission on School Construction to adopt regulations to establish minimal air quality standards in public schools by a certain date. It requires each county board of education to report on its plans to implement those standards and replaces reports published on websites with reports shared on request. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments is adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise for a few questions?
Good
Vice Chair?
morning. Yes.
Hi. So looks like a good bill. It looks like a bill that I voted on in Baltimore County delegation as well. So I guess maybe you guys just decided to go with a statewide bill. Is that what happened?
Sure, if you want to say it that way.
I wasn't sure what happened. So, okay, that's good. The Baltimore County one had a fiscal note. Can you tell me what's the fiscal note on this one?
It says no fiscal note, no state, local, or small business affect the ultimate regulations, however, may have cause for local units of government.
Wow, okay. Thank you. Thank you for answering those questions. I think it's a little weird that there's no fiscal note on this bill, Madam Speaker, but the fiscal note to do this exact same thing in one county was several $100,000. Just wanted to make note of that. Thank you.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 707, election law, deadline for selection of lieutenant governor, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 745, election law, post-election tabulation audits, risk limiting audits, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the subcommittee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes a provision that would limit the automated software audit to 25% of the ballot styles. I move the committee amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 766, children residential treatment centers, education funding, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Moves much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment delays the effective date of the bill until 2023. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 836, public schools, student athletics, requirements and reports, Elijah Gorham Act, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the vice chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes reporting requirements by schools on automatic external defibrillators and heat acclimation and replaces them with venue-specific emergency action plans. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. The gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can the floor leader rise for a couple of questions?
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Hey, good morning. Hey, good morning. You're right there. Would you mind if I special order this bill to the appropriate time next session for a possible amendment?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Question for the
Madam
House
Speaker.
is a special order HB 836 to the second session. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 942, horse racing, satellite simulcast betting facilities and permit holders, alterations, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1179, State Lottery, Sales of Lottery Tickets and Tickets from Instant Ticket Lottery Machines, Commissions. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes a mandated appropriations from the bill. I move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 10. Clerk will read the first bill.
Bill 355, Prince George's County Work Group on the membership and operation of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 makes the Prince George's County Board of Education an entirely elected board beginning on July 1st, 2024 by removing the appointed members. It alters the composition and focus of the work group designed to study this county board and requires that the board elect its chair and vice chair rather than having them appointed. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk to read next bill.
House Bill 476, Baltimore County Board of Education member appointments and terms and election of officers. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires the governor to appoint members to the Baltimore County Board of Education in 2023 for 1 year and staggers the terms of appointed members for the board so that they are up in presidential election years. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 683, Anne Arundel County Republican Party Central Committee elections. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 718, Anne Arundel County Local Development Council Delegate Appointments. Favorable.
The question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 812, Montgomery County Board of Education Data Disaggregation Policy and Racial Disparity Comparisons. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment removes an example of a specific racial group. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 945, Carroll County Multi-Drawing Raffles. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Rules and Executive Nominations, report number 7. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 641, Carroll County County Commissioner Districts Redistricting Plan. Favorable.
The question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. The report of the Rules Committee, the clerk will read the bills and the committees they are referred to.
House Bill 1402, Healthcare Practitioners Sexual Abuse Reporting and Statute of Limitations, re-referred to Judiciary. House Bill 1418, Marriage Confidential Communication Criminal Charge, re-referred to Judiciary. House Bill 1485, Trustees of the Walters Art Gallery Collective Bargaining, re-referred to Appropriations.
Special order calendar number 38. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 129, Behavioral Health Crisis Response Services and Public Safety Answering Points Modifications. Favor report is amended, adopted.
There's a motion by the gentleman who made from Hartford who made the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have just a couple more questions for the floor leader.
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. So I was thinking back upon our conversation yesterday about the bill, and one of the points you made was that an individual suffering a mental health crisis is 16 times more likely to be killed in interaction with law enforcement. Is that the data you were citing yesterday?
Yes, so the data that I have is basically that individuals, a person with untreated mental health illness, chronic untreated mental health illness, is 16 times more likely to be killed by a police than a regular civilian. And that came from the experts' testimony in our committee.
Sure, but do we have any idea of the underlying data there in terms of, obviously, if someone is suffering a mental health crisis, they're going to be more likely to engage aggressively, attack law enforcement, put others in danger, which would force law enforcement to take action, things of that nature?
Not necessarily. That is not always the case. Actually, having law enforcement presence escalates the situation. The sirens, the handcuff, the presence, it really makes an individual that is in crisis, it actually makes it more traumatic for them. And national best practices, organizations that are recognized nationally, and our federal government, they actually recommend that in situations when dealing with someone that has a mental illness, that there be, if at all possible, no presence by the police.
Sure.
So what the bill that we have in front of us, we follow best practices.
Sure. Well, you just mentioned individual with an unidentified mental illness, correct? Was that the data you quoted?
The data that I quoted deals with individuals that have a mental health illness.
Okay, so in these cases, it's difficult for the dispatcher to identify positively that they have a mental health illness, and they may be in a legitimate crisis, a mental health crisis. Correct?
Not necessarily, because when you are a dispatcher, usually the calls that come are mostly, a lot of them are traditional crimes, right? Like a murder, an assault. And usually the person who is talking to the dispatcher is trained to ask certain questions, to ascertain what is the issue here. And usually a loved one will tell the dispatcher, this person is having an episode, or, they go into the detail. So the dispatcher is able, with their experience and training, to decide whether or not to send a crisis team, whether or not to send the police. The bill does not say that you cannot send the police, and different jurisdictions have different models. There are jurisdictions where the police goes with the crisis mobile center. There's jurisdictions where the police and the mobile crisis center work together. In fact, Anne Arundel, the crisis mobile center shares a line with the police and they communicate. There are jurisdictions where the police may be simply on the phone a block away. There are jurisdictions where they go first, but it gives the local jurisdictions the flexibility to do it in a manner that it works for them. But there are best practices to follow. And the bill does not say at all anywhere that police cannot be present. It just says that we should limit the presence of the police in this situation so we don't escalate the situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for answering my questions.
My pleasure.
Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 743526-1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I just want to address some of the issues with this bill, and I think this is obviously a well-intentioned bill. We want to de-escalate every single interaction we possibly can with law enforcement because we want positive outcomes with law enforcement wherever we can. The concern is, so when I was in law enforcement a long time ago, 100 pounds ago, and 20 years when I was in the Marine Corps, always the worst interactions we would ever have were domestic disputes, right? And even though most of these individuals did not suffer from mental health issues, they were in distress, as most people are when they're having to call 911 and call law enforcement. And we would walk into a variety of circumstances, not knowing what's going on. Obviously, stories would change from the time that the 911 call came in to the time that we would arrive on scene. And even the best 911 dispatchers on the planet cannot see through the phone line to see exactly what's happening and understand the nature of the call, the individuals that are upset, especially if an individual has a mental health crisis. They may not give a full and accurate picture of what's happening on scene. Additionally, in this bill, it's clear that we're trying to reduce law enforcement responding to these type of calls. I'm concerned that puts tremendous pressure on the 911 operator to meet the will of the General Assembly. These 911 operators right now are under enormous pressure, just dealing with the calls that are plain to deal with, people in distress, emergencies, people dying, elderly, all kinds of issues that these folks are having to respond to, and the mental health crisis that currently exists amongst our 911 operators. Now we're going to add an additional layer to them to have to determine whether or not I send law enforcement to a call and potentially not meet the will of the General Assembly. I think we're creating too much pressure on these good folks that are doing God's work right now, responding to these 911 calls. So all my amendment does is require that law enforcement is dispatched along with these crisis response teams to a call. It does not mean that law enforcement must interact with the individual. It does not mean that law enforcement must use codes in responding and make a big scene. But law enforcement's job is to evaluate for the safety of these crisis response teams when they're responding to some of these very complex, very difficult calls. I think the burden that would lay upon a 911 operator who's forced to make this very difficult decision to send a crisis response team in without law enforcement support, right, and gets killed at a scene because the 911 operator is trying to meet the intent of this law is terrifying. And I don't want to accidentally and unintentionally contribute to the mental health crisis amongst these 911 operators. All right? So I think this is a good amendment. It's a friendly amendment. It helps support the goals. It does not mean that, again, we can still put together these plans and build these plans around reducing law enforcement's interaction on these calls to minimize and again, the floor leader is absolutely right. Sometimes law enforcement can provoke some of these individuals. So we need to work towards plans to reduce that. But at no time, for all these reasons, should these folks be dispatched alone for their safety, for the safety of individuals they're reporting, and also the safety of the individuals this individual may be interacting with, where they may be risking the safety of others. So for all those reasons, I urge the body to support this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I thank the gentleman for providing the amendment ahead of time. I really appreciate it. I would say that this is not a friendly amendment, with all due respect, and I would ask the body to resist it for the following reasons. If you look at the bill and you go to the reprint, bill page 6, line 25, it's very well thought out, the process at the front end with the dispatcher, the operator. And it says each public safety answering point shall develop a written policy on the procedures to be followed by the public safety answering point when a call is received that involves an individual suffering an active mental health crisis. The written policy developed under this paragraph shall, is not discretionary, it is mandatory, shall include the procedures to triage a call involving an individual suffering an active mental health crisis. That means that they're trained to ask questions, to make sure that they ascertain what the situation is. They can't see, but they can hear, and the training allows them to get a picture of what's going on before they decide whether it should be just the police or whether it should be a mobile crisis team that is designed primarily to respond to the calls from the police officers that are on police radios, and they are able to tell whether, this is appropriate or not. The bill on page 7 goes on to say that the dispatcher must look at the resources that are available to dispatch. That means that in the training, they have been told what those resources are in the community to help an individual that has a mental health crisis. This is not a call that involves a murder. It is not those traditional charges. They're trained to recognize this. It goes on to say that they shall also include the procedures for making a dispatch decision and training for applicable staff on implementing the procedures. So I would say that these operators get training, they're taught what questions to ask, what kind of scenarios to look at. And again, I would say that your amendment, while well-intentioned, and I appreciate it, it goes against the best advice that our experts give us, that in cases involving mental health crisis, it is best to limit the presence of the police. And the bill does that. And I will ask the body to follow the science and follow the recommendations of our experts. And I would ask the body to vote red on this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, I appreciate the floor leader's work on this bill, and and I agree with much of what you say. My concern is this entire bill is predicated on the individual who's potentially suffering a mental health crisis being clear and giving honest answers about the circumstance. And we're assuming that there's not a murder on scene or a violent crime on scene based upon the answers of an individual who is suffering a mental health or even possibly suffering a mental health crisis. So the amount of pressure and liability we're putting on certainly the 911 operators, certainly the amount of pressure we're putting on crisis response team showing up into a situation that may be dangerous and they have no idea, and all they have to go on is the answers of an individual suffering a mental health crisis. Let me repeat that. The only information that we have been making this determination is the answer of someone that is suffering a mental health crisis to determine whether or not it's safe to send one of our good mental health providers in unprotected to a potentially dangerous situation. And all my bill does is just require that law enforcement at least accompany them. They can hang in the background, they can evaluate the scene and make sure it's safe before they send the folks in, but these folks at least need the backup to help protect them in case they're walking into a dangerous situation. So I please urge the body to please support this very common sense, very good intentioned amendment to strengthen this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will call the roll. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading.
No. Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Prince George's.
I would like to vote no on the last amendment. Thank you. My button didn't work. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Special order calendar number 39. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 172, income tax, determination of taxable income, union dues, and expenses to influence collective bargaining. Favorable report is amended, adopted.
Gentleman from Calvary made the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It's amendment number 34324/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment, Madam Speaker.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would like to ask a couple of questions on this bill now that I've introduced the amendment, if I may. Hello, how are
Good
you
afternoon.
today?
Recognize the floor leader.
Thank you.
It is afternoon already, wow. My question is, this appears to be House Bill 172, income tax, determination of taxable income, union dues and expenses to influence collective bargaining. Can you explain what the bill does?
So first, just a reminder that we did adopt a committee amendment yesterday, so the title has changed. But this bill now allows for a state income tax deduction, a subtraction modification for up to $300 per year in union dues.
Okay, so the bill allows someone who belongs to a union to deduct from their state income taxes up to $300?
If they paid union dues up to $300, they can take that subtraction modification.
And I just curious the purpose of the bill.
Sure. So this is a benefit actually that Maryland workers had for decades because of the federal tax deductions that passed on to the state income calculation. That changed by federal legislation in 2017. So this is restoring, or at least partially restoring, that benefit.
And who does this benefit? Do you guess it benefits whom?
Workers in Maryland who are members of unions.
Union members.
Pay dues.
Union members. Thank you. So, Madam Speaker, my amendment, which I've already offered to this bill, a bill that provides union members a tax break, is an amendment that says dues paid by an individual during the taxable year for membership in a parental rights organization that advocates for and defends parental rights in public schools. So in other words, my amendment would extend this exact same tax break that's being offered to union members to parents who belong to a parental rights organization that advocates for and defends parental rights in public schools. My amendment's pretty straightforward. I'll certainly be happy to tell you why I'm offering it. I'm offering it because there is a sense, at least in Calvert County, by the parents who have children in public schools, that their parental rights are slowly but surely being extinguished. And rather than just provide a taxable event that benefits just one group, the unions, namely primarily the teachers' unions, this also benefits parents. This amendment, I should say, benefits the parents because then they can also organize, and they can have the same benefit to organize and be a countervailing group to advocate for their children, which they have every right to do. I'll certainly be happy to admit this. There are a lot of policies that are passed through this body that make it harder for the teachers to teach. I want to make that very clear. There's no doubt about it. Some of those policies keep children that really clearly don't belong in the classroom. These are children that belong in probably alternative schools, which we've certainly offered other amendments about this in the past, like freedom of school choice. So the teachers have every right to organize. We're not saying that they don't, but we're saying here with this amendment that the parents have every right to organize too. And to deny the parents the same opportunity that you're providing to one group is to put your fingers on the scale against the parents. And so, Madam Speaker, this particular amendment is pretty straightforward. It extends the same benefit that in this bill is being extended to the unions and is also extending it to parents so that the parents in Maryland can belong to parental rights organizations and also get the same tax deduction. And for all those reasons, Madam Speaker, I move the amendment. Thank you.
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I just want to remind you that many of these workers we're talking about are parents. They're frontline workers who served us through the pandemic. They're grocery store workers. They're firefighters. They're police officers. They're nurses. And yes, they're teachers. And any of those members who pay union dues should be able to enjoy this benefit, which is a typical practice in tax policy, to be able to deduct the cost of doing business. Okay, this is a business expense for these employees. Just like a company can, write off the cost of their memberships in organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, trade associations, industry groups, employees also have the right to take this subtraction modification. So colleagues, I'd urge you to resist this amendment. It is not really pertinent to the topic of this bill. It's about parents' rights and education, not about workers' rights and taking this tax modification.
The maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment applies to the parents who have children in public schools. The floor leader indicated that the folks that are government employees should have special rights. That's what I heard. Special rights for taxation and taxation benefits in law. Remember, these are government employees, Madam Speaker. They are. These are government employees paid with taxpayer dollars, and now you're giving the same people who are using taxpayer dollars the right to have benefits that aren't extended to every single person in the state. That's all this amendment does. And it's a common sense amendment. It's not just pro-parent, which is badly needed in Maryland. Instead, we're saying enough already, using public money and you are providing that public money, which is tax dollars, to the public schools, paying public teachers, and then saying to them they can use that public money to get public tax breaks. But parents can't have the same thing. I think that's wrong. That's why I'm offering this amendment. Thank you.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, once again, I'd urge you to vote red. This bill is pro-parent. We're not talking about government employees. We're talking about employees in every sector who pay union dues. And many of them are parents. Please resist this amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker,
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 40. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 850, Schools, Pre-Kindergarten Programs, and County Boards of Education Discrimination in Favor Report is amended, adopted.
Recognizing the gentlelady from Baltimore County, the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And today I appreciate letting me have a chance to take a closer look at this bill. And of course, it's important that we do not discriminate. I think there's some very good things in this bill. And I think there's some additional things that could make this bill better. So I have an amendment at the desk. It's 553226/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a pretty simple amendment. Again, we shouldn't discriminate against people. This just adds language to the current bill. And it says, if you can't pull it up on your computer, I'll read it to you. It's pretty quick and simple. A public school may not provide classroom instruction by school personnel or a third party on sexual orientation or gender identity to students in pre-kindergarten through grade 3 in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate, or in a manner that the department determines is inappropriate. So it's pretty simple. It just says that our public schools shouldn't teach kids 4, 5, 6, and 7 about sex and gender identity. We want our kids to learn to read, write, and do math. Let's focus on that, especially pre-K to 3. And a number of my friends who teach early childhood education agree with this language. They're actually not interested in teaching controversial sex and gender ID lessons to their students. There are 9 other states who passed something very similar to this. This is actually a really scaled down small version of what 9 other states have passed. Sex and gender identity are things that parents and families should be talking with their children when they're developmentally ready and at their home. There was actually a recent poll done on this issue. 1,000 Americans were polled nationwide. And the poll actually skewed Democrat by 4 percentage points. 79% of the respondents thought that parents should be the ones talking to their young children about these topics, not the school system. 64% support this actual language. They actually read this language in the poll, and 64% support it. And there was not a big difference in D's and R's on the actual question. 69% of Republicans and 62% of Democrats, again remembering the whole poll was skewed 4 percentage points. Parents want to know what the curriculum is and is age appropriate. Parents should have a say about what their children are being taught about deeply personal and controversial issues. Kids who are barely old enough to read, they have a whole world of things to learn about in their short 6 hours of classroom instruction per day, sometimes less when they're at pre-K. I agree. We should not discriminate, and that is why this language is just a simple addition. Parents want schools to focus on learning basic skills, not promoting someone's agenda. Let kids be kids. I urge a green vote on this simple amendment. Thank you.
The floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I thank the delegate for bringing the amendment before us. Would have been very helpful if we had had the amendment in advance. We don't. We're reading it right now. But I feel like it's fairly easy to answer. This bill is not about curriculum. This bill is about treatment of students. It's about admitting them, and it's about how you treat them once they are admitted. There's only one mention of curriculum in the entire bill, and it says what schools don't have to teach. That's the only thing. And that really lets a number of schools off the hook as far as religious teachings go. But everything else in this bill is about how we admit and treat students. And to insert something that is curricular at this point doesn't follow the spirit of the bill. So I will ask the body to resist this amendment, please.
Young lady from Baltimore County and Harvard.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the floor leader's comments on this. But here's my perspective. We have a very diverse state. Lots of different religions are in this state. And there are lots of different religions in this state who would support the amendment as proposed by my seatmate from Hartford and Baltimore. My family is one of them. I know many families. I have many friends who are Christians, Orthodox Jews, Muslims. This is not an extreme amendment. We cannot continue to push policies from this body that ignore the very real fact that many religious families don't believe their children should be taught this stuff at this young age and in the school system. They want to be having these conversations with their children at the dinner table, when their kids have questions, responding to them in a way that is culturally appropriate to those families' religious beliefs. So for them, this is important. We heard the statistics from the most recent poll on this topic, and just being in the communities, we hear the same thing from people all across the aisle. This is not a partisan amendment. This is a good amendment. This is an opportunity for us to say, yes, children should be children. And parents should have a say in what their young children are taught. This is exactly on the topic of discrimination. This is exactly on the topic of making sure that families' religious beliefs are not discriminated against and that their children's values and their families' values are included and considered on topics of sexual education. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment in similar form has been introduced in bills around the nation. You may have heard of it. It's the Don't Say Gay bill that recently passed in Florida and which is leading to widespread protests. As this amendment is written, it would prohibit a teacher, for example, if a student who had two moms or two dads and was being bullied by other students, it would prohibit the teacher effectively from responding in any way and saying, hey, you know, that's legal, it's fine, you know, you can't, because that could result in a lawsuit against the school system. It would prohibit a teacher, if a student asked about the constitutional protections for gay marriage that have been moved through the Supreme Court, the teacher would not be able to explain the Constitution of the United States and Supreme Court decisions to their students in K through 3. Now, I will say, in K through 3, these discussions don't happen that often, but kids are curious and they ask. And this notion of the rights of parents has been brought up multiple times now in this conversation. And I wonder why those who bring that viewpoint think that gay and lesbian parents don't count too. What about them? We're going to erase them from our schools? I don't know how you can stand on this floor with our gay and lesbian colleagues who have children.
Point of order, you're impugning motives. This amendment does not say that and does not do that, Mr. Majority Leader. We've been instructed not to impugn motives. And I am not doing that with this amendment. You are doing that. That is not what this amendment says. It says in a manner that is not age appropriate. That is what it says. You are making this DC politics, not us. Madam Speaker, I move this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. All of this argument notwithstanding, some of which I agree with and some of which I disagree with, which I imagine many of us on the floor feel that way about much of this. That is not what this bill is about. This bill is not about curricular requirements. This bill is about treatment of staff and students in a non-discriminatory manner in the school, and I urge the body to resist this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Madam
Young
Speaker.
lady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Delegate Lutke. What I do want to say is I am gay, and so is my wife. And we have a daughter, and she is so lucky to have two mamas, as everyone tells her. And what I'm hearing is that some people want to ensure that our curriculum doesn't teach age-appropriate ways of talking about LGBTQ kids and their parents. Well, guess what? Our sex ed curriculum already requires it to be age-appropriate. If you've been paying attention on the floor over these past few years when we've done legislation about consent and other issues, it is very clear, and if you look at the rules, what we tell K through 3 kids is not about sex. We talk about appropriate touch. We talk about hugs. We talk about what can be said. When Father's Day comes in the schools and they start writing cards, my daughter has to say, I have two mamas. I don't have a father. And then other kids are going to say, what? How can that be? This should be talked about in school. It is normal. It's in everyone's schools. Two moms, two dads, a lot of variations. I'm going to say it one more time. I am gay, I'm gay, and I'm all right.
Let me remind members, do not use the actual member's name when you're referring to your colleague. Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm confused. Majority Leader stands up and said, this is the Don't Say Gay bill. And then we had another speaker stand up and scream, gay, gay, gay. Would the lady from Hartford, maker of the amendment, answer a few questions for me?
Certainly.
I'm looking at your amendment.
Yes, she may.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'm looking at your amendment here, and I'm really confused on it because does the word gay appear in the amendment?
It does not.
Does the word LGBTQ or any other transgender appear in the amendment?
It does not.
Can you read me the amendment, read me the amendment again, please.
A public school may not provide classroom instruction by school personnel or a third party on sexual orientation or gender identity to students in pre-K through grade 3 in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate, in a manner that the department deems inappropriate.
Thank you.
That's it. That's the amendment.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you for answering that question for me. Can the floor leader please rise? Just a question.
Floor leader.
So,
sure.
We just had a member yell out gay, gay, gay 3 times on the floor talking about this amendment. Does the word gay appear in the amendment?
I didn't have access to the amendment before it was provided. Will you give me a second to read it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe I was listening and maybe I wasn't. The word gay doesn't appear, but the word sexual orientation, that phrase does.
Sexual orientation does. Can you explain to me, it says a public school may not provide a classroom instruction by a school personnel or third party on sexual orientation or gender identity. And then it says to students in pre-kindergarten through grade 3. We just had a member say that the curriculum, it's already age appropriate in the curriculum. Is that true?
Yes, for public schools.
Right. So
don't even
why
require
why
private,
wouldn't this? Why
Can I answer the question, please?
Yeah. Why wouldn't this?
Wait, I didn't get to answer the question. May I answer it?
Go ahead.
It does exist for public schools. It's not required in private institutions.
Okay. So why wouldn't this amendment be appropriate then? if that's already the curriculum policy? Why would it be
Easy.
a
I
good
said,
idea?
asked and answered. It's not on the subject of the bill. The bill is not prescribing curriculum. The bill is to prescribe whether or not students may be discriminated against, parents may be discriminated against, staff may be discriminated against.
With all due respect, your first answer, you said there was curriculum in the bill.
No, you didn't hear carefully. I would like to contradict you on that matter.
Okay, go ahead.
We allow certain kinds of curriculums. We do not prevent them. We do not prescribe them, and that's what I said.
So instead of passing this and adding this language to this bill, you want to, I mean, why is this a bad idea, recodifying this in state law? Because I don't think it's appropriate to be talking about this, and I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, these aren't your children. These are the parents' children. And that's how it should be really framed.
If I answer
what
your
gives you the right to introduce gender orientation to someone under third grade?
Do you want him to respond?
Sure.
So by answering your question, I would justify the premise, why is this a bad idea? I'm not discussing whether this is a good idea or bad idea. What I'm discussing is this does not belong in this bill at this time.
This is the amendment in front of us. We're a public policy body. Here's the amendment in front of us. I would like for you to address that question.
There's no reason to, as I've said, because
Madam
this
Speaker,
is not the matter.
leader-
Okay. Well, I've
leader's not
asked and
answering
answered,
the
Madam
question.
Chair. Thank you. Madam
Well,
Speaker.
you won't answer the question. Madam Speaker, can we get a floor leader to answer that question, whether this is a good idea? Because I don't see why we should be teaching other people's children that are from preschool to third grade sexual orientation and gender identity.
Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Thank you.
Because it's a straw man argument.
It's a straw
Because
man?
it's a straw man argument. Take a look at the curriculum. It's all online. Take a look at the curriculum for kindergarten through third grade. It is a straw man argument. It's a falsehood to say that schools are like proactively engaging in whatever it is you think they're doing. And the converse of that in this amendment, because the way this is going to be interpreted in schools, is you cannot talk about this at all. You cannot talk about this at all.
I don't believe the amendment says that. And look, children have many different parents. Some children have single parents. Some children have grandparents that are acting like their parents. So I don't see any of that in this amendment, period. I mean, we're offering conjecture, and this seems like a really good idea not to talk about sexual orientation and gender identity with kids. Third grade, I mean, that's 7, 8, 9-year-olds, right? 9-year-olds?
So to answer your question, it's not conjecture. I've spent my career, a number of us on this floor have spent our careers in classrooms. And what will happen if this passes is that classroom teachers will get the message that you are not allowed to talk about this. Exactly as I described earlier, the gentlelady interpreted that as me questioning intent. I'm describing what I think would be the reality of this passing. And that may not be your intent. But I believe this amendment would have horrific effects on children who, even at that early age, themselves may be starting to consider their own sexuality, and on children of gay and lesbian parents. So I oppose this amendment, and I would ask the body to vote red.
Well, Madam Speaker, on the amendment.
On the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the majority leader answering, not ducking the question there, and give me a straight answer, but I'm still kind of confused because on one way they say, oh, we're not doing this as part of the curriculum, and then we can't pass this in law because if we did that, then it would be a problem with the parents or some other, euphemism there. Look, this sounds like an amazing idea. These kids, the public schools are not the parents. You're not the parents. These are not your children. And look, nothing gives you the right to breach this subject with kids that are third grade and less. This amendment reads kindergarten through third grade. That's it. That's all it does. I'll rise to support this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
To explain my vote.
Explain your vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am upset and disturbed that my motives have been impugned here. I have many friends who have many different types of families, and that is not what this amendment does, and I'm sorry that my good friend interpreted it that way. Of course, teachers can talk about the many different kinds of families. What this is going to do is say that drag queen story hour is not going to happen in the public schools. It's going to say that that is not appropriate for public schools. Thank you.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call, calendar of third reading, House Bills number 47. Clerk will read.
Madam
the first
Speaker.
bill. Clerk will take the call. There are 135 members present. The House is
Madam
still
Speaker.
in session.
My button didn't work, I'm here.
Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 526, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, Plumbing and Fuel Gas Services, Licenses and Penalties.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 526, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 556, Caroline County and Queen Anne's County Natural Resources, Sunday Hunting.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 123 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 556, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 818, Electricity Community Solar Energy Generation, Consolidated Billing.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 818, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1000, Maryland Earn and Learn Act of 2022, Establishment.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1000, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1182, Carroll County Commissioners' Compensation and Benefits.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1182, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1265, Barbers and Cosmetologists Licensure Requirements, Review and Regulations.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1265, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1340, Montgomery County Economic Development Business Improvement Districts.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1340, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 48. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 51, Talbot County Deer and Turkey Hunting Sundays.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change
To
their
explain my
vote?
vote?
If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 119 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 51, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 143, Somerset County Natural Resources Sunday Hunting.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 118 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 143, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 170, Calvert County Sunday Hunting.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 117 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 117, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 434, Motor Vehicle Speed Limits Establishment and Enforcement.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 108 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 434, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 485, Montgomery County Deer Hunting Sundays.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 123 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 485, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 514, Charles County Natural Resources Sunday Hunting.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 118 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 514, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 914, Calvert County Procurement Award of Multi-Year Contracts.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 914, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 926, Vehicle Laws, Mechanical Repair Contracts, Insurance Reserves.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
There being 105 votes in the affirmative. Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On House Bill 434, I wish to go to yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Speaker.
All right. Good. Let me get this count in here. There being 105 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 926, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Okay.
Madam
Gentleman
Speaker.
from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On House Bill 1000, I'd like to be recorded in the green. Thank you.
Any other vote changes? Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 50. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 270, Business Regulation, Innkeepers, Maintenance of Guest Records, and Employee Human Trafficking Awareness, Training, and Policy.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 270, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 323, Real Property, Limitations on Summoning Law Enforcement or Emergency Services, Prohibition.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 323, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Prince George's.
I'm sorry. Give me some grace. I'm still new. I hit the button too soon, and I didn't record my vote for HB 270. I would like to be in the green, please. Thank you.
Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 438, Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority Funding Formulas Alteration, Washington Metro Area Transit Authority Dedicated Funding Amendment Act of 2022.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to oppose this bill for a couple simple reasons. It redirects money from roads and bridges back over to Metro. The fact is that Highway Transportation Trust Fund is ultimately, predominantly, overwhelmingly paid for by motorists with gas tax and vehicle registration fees. Matter of fact, 61% of that money goes to mass transit. And not to say that Metro shouldn't get its fair share, but recently Metro just dropped fares on its own riders. And I remember this article I read about a month ago on WTOP, that Metro released a report that shows 1/3 of their bus riders don't pay the required fee. It's called fare evasion. And I read that, and I've seen this happen many times. We're taking the Metro where people will jump over the little gate there and just avoid paying the fee altogether. In the report, it has a hyperlink to Metro itself. You got a little graph here. And the fare evasion for Metro Rail is about $10 million a year. On Metro Bus, it's $26 million a year that people are not paying the fee. And with record gas prices and consumers paying into the Transportation Trust Fund, I don't think it's fair that we have yet another bill continue the subsidization of WMATA per the fiscal note out of 5, 10 million, 15 million. It just goes on and on. Look, the constituents I represent, they pay into the Transportation Trust Fund. We deleted fare box recovery years ago, and if their own consumers don't feel they should be paying for the service that they're needing, my citizens, I'm certainly don't think we should be subsidizing it any further. So I'm urging the members to vote red on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just would urge the body to cast a green vote. First, I thank my friend from St. Mary's. I'm thrilled to hear he's ridden the Metro before. Next time you're up my way, I hope you'll give me a call or a text and we can ride together. You've raised some really interesting points about WMATA and Metro, some real challenges. We also talked about them with my friend from Baltimore and Hartford County. What this bill does is makes good on a piece of legislation many of us who were here 4 years ago passed on dedicated funding. It assures that that dedicated funding can continue to be bonded off of by Metro so they can continue investing in really important safety and capital projects. So I'd ask the body to cast a green vote on this piece of legislation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There be 102 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 438, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 550, alcoholic beverages, manufacturers, licenses, and off-site permits, sunset extension.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 550, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 660, commission to study the Division of Rehabilitation Services Student Job Training Reformation Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 660, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 772, Maryland Energy Administration Energy and Water Efficiency Standards, alterations.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 772, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1001, Human Services, Office of Home Energy Programs, Power to the People Pilot Program Personnel and Uniform Redetermination Process.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their votes? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1001, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Young lady from Carroll.
Thank you. I'd like to change my vote on House Bill 1000 to yay.
Any other vote changes? Gentleman from Hartford in the back.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to change my vote on House Bill 323 to red.
Any other vote changes? Okay. Right. Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the bills and committee assignments.
Senate Bill 1010, the President, Ways and Means.
Introduction of bond initiative after the 55th day. Recognizing the young lady from Prince George's County.
Thank you,
Why is this bill late?
Madam Speaker.
Why is it late?
It's late because of my senator gave it to me late.
Okay. Shall the bond initiative be introduced? It requires 94 votes. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, the bond initiative will be introduced. Clerk will read the bond initiative and the committee assignment.
Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 50, March 9, 2022, referred to appropriations.
Can our leaders come forward to the dais, please? That ends the work at the desk. And everyone take their seats, please. Committee announcements, appropriation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The full committee will meet today at 3 p.m. for a voting session. Thank you.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. The House Judiciary Committee, I need to see subcommittee chairs at 3:30, and we'll have a voting session at 4.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment and Transportation Committee will have a brief voting session at 1:30. We have a lot of subcommittees, and my leaders, pay attention to your emails because we have to have a quick meeting on that as well.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are the unenvied committee today. We will be having 4 subcommittee meetings. We will be having a chairman's meeting and a voting session. We'll get through the subcommittee meetings at a minimum between the 2 sessions. We'll keep you posted.
And
Thank you.
do you have the time?
Well, we'll start 15 minutes after this session ends, and they're stacked up. We'll keep in touch with people.
Okay. Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Revenues will meet immediately after the floor session. Local revenues will meet about 15 minutes after that. And education, stay tuned for your time. We will not be meeting as a full committee today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Appropriations.
Yes, Madam Speaker, my apologies. I forgot to mention that we do have 2 bills that are going to be heard at 3 p.m.
Okay. All right. Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Economic Matters Committee will meet immediately after session for a voting session. We have 3 bills to vote on. Immediately after, 3 bills. Thank you very much. Mark.
Any other committee? Okay. I guess no caucus announcements. Quorum call before adjournment.
Madam Speaker?
Madam Speaker.
Okay, hold on one second. Chairman of the Irish Caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the body, today is St. Patrick's Day, and I would just like to invite everyone that is wearing green to join me outside at the steps going to the second floor for a picture. And this is the last time that I'll be wearing this green jacket as a member of the House, so please join us for a picture. I'm sorry, didn't mean to bring it down. That was my... Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Majority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With a bit of sad news, for those of you that came in with me, like permission to use delegate's name?
Permission granted.
Like Delegate Pendergrass, and I think that's the only one of our class in here with us now. But our friend Emmett C. Burns, Delegate Dr. Reverend, our good friend, passed and transitioned this morning. So it's with great sorrow that we ask the Speaker to adjourn in a moment of silence for our colleague, ex-colleague and friend.
The clerk will take the call. 134 members present. House is still in session. Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Thursday, March 17th at 5 p.m., Legislative Day, March 10th.